Hello, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of the New York Times, I'm pleased to welcome you to the inaugural Get with the Times, a new event series that brings our journalists to you, our nation's college students, to discuss vital issues that affect us all. I'm Megan Kasafer, and I'm on the NYT Live team at the Times. Our goal is to bring alive the important content of the New York Times, to give you information, analysis, and yes, real news, all in real time. Tonight's Get With the Times event is being live streamed on Facebook from UCLA, and students on campuses across the country are hosting watch parties. Before we start, let me tell you about our guests. I'd like to welcome Yamiche Alcindor, national reporter for the New York Times, who has covered politics and social justice issues and presidential campaigns of Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. She also produces videos and documentaries about urgent societal concerns. She's one of our top journalists, and we're so pleased to have her here tonight. I'm also thrilled to welcome Leslie Odom Jr., who needs little introduction. You all know him as Aaron Burr, sir, from the blockbuster Hamilton, for which he won a Tony and a Grammy. What you may not know is that he made his Broadway debut at the age of 17 in Rent before heading to Carnegie Mellon School of Drama, where he graduated with honors. I'll leave the rest of the conversation to them, and afterwards, Leslie will be taking questions from the audience, both in person and online. If you're tuning in on Facebook, you can start asking your questions now. As a special way to close the evening, Leslie will perform Seriously, a song written by Sarah Bareilles, a UCLA graduate, which has never been performed live before. Whatever your views are, we believe you should get yourself informed, then show up, speak up, and stand up. We hope you find this event both provocative and fun. Please join me in welcoming Yamiche Alcindor and Leslie Odom Jr.
So the crowd is obviously really excited to see you. And we're really, really excited here at the New York Times that you would sit down and talk to us about so many different things that are going on in this nation. So I'm going to jump right into the questions.
I want to say they wanted to, this is the first one, right? This is the first one that they're doing where they're talking, is it going to be monthly or, semi-annually or whatever, but I was the one that said, well, we have to do it for a live audience. I mean, if we're going to, I don't want to sing in front of cameras and no people, so I'm glad I fought for that. I'm glad you guys are here.
Great, so my first question is, because we're at a college, and because I think we have somewhat similar mothers in that they both encouraged us to go to college and both wanted us to be educated, I want to talk to you about your decision to turn down an offer to perform on Broadway and finish college. Tell us about that choice, and tell us about why you thought you still think going to college was important. And maybe give them a little background if they aren't familiar with the choice that you made.
That was not completely my decision. That came after threats of
Told
bodily
you our families were similar.
I actually kind of think about that as like that was the last decision that my parents made for me. I'm sure you guys know what that's like. Your parents really, the good ones, and I hope you all had good ones, they're hopefully teaching you how to think and not what to think. They're teaching you how to make decisions, what to weigh, what things go into making really great decisions for yourselves and for your futures. And so my parents, I was almost at the point where they trusted me. Almost there. That was like, I was 18, I had done Rent on Broadway, and I had auditioned for another show and gotten it. I'd booked it, and so there was this opportunity to go be, the show was Aida on Broadway, the original cast of Aida. And so we first said no for the out-of-town tryout. And then, so I went to school, I went to college. I'd always, you guys are probably too young, but I grew up watching a show called A Different World. So I thought I was gonna go to Hillman. Like I wanted to live that life. So I always wanted to go to college. That wasn't, ever a question for me. But so I was excited to go. And then once we got there, then they came back. They came back and they said, well, now we're going to Broadway and we'd love to have you reconsider. Would you maybe want to come to Broadway? And I'm in the middle, I think, of my freshman year. Things have gotten difficult enough. They've gotten as difficult as I thought, yeah, I'll go take a break. I'll go take a breath and go to New York and do this show, and then I'll come back. I'll come back and I'll finish with another Broadway credit. And so my grandfather was still alive. My grandparents flew in, and my parents brought me down from college for the weekend to consider this. It was all, we're going to help you make this decision, but the final decision is yours. And so yeah, they talked to me all weekend and gave me all the reasons why they thought I shouldn't do it, and I told them at the end of the weekend. My father checked in to see everything okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
We're just gonna get you on microphone.
Oh, sweet. So my dad checked in with me at the end of the weekend, and he said, so what? We'd love to know what decision you've made. What have you decided to do? I said, well, thank you all for your, for all the advice and all the help, but I'm gonna go and do Aida in New York. And and they were like, no, that's the wrong. No. We're gonna ask you again. So we decided that I was gonna stay at Carnegie and finish up, and I actually think that was the best thing for me. Obviously, sitting here right now in front of you, I'm so grateful for the journey and every single part of it. That I learned a lot of lessons from that. I learned that you can walk away from even a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You can walk away from something that doesn't feel completely right, and things still turn out. The sky didn't fall. Things carried on. Somebody else did the part. He did the part beautifully. It's everything ended up the way it was supposed to end up.
Thanks for that. And I think just because we're at a college campus, it's important to hear that sometimes, because I think sitting in the audience, you're making all these decisions that feel like their life and feel like your whole life is turning at these decisions, and you realize that sometimes if the decision is whatever decision you make, you end up where you're supposed to end up. And I think
that's right.
You've done that beautifully in your own life. So the next question I have for you is, you said that Hamilton is a show that you were waiting for your whole life, and you said if there was a chance, there's a chance that this is the greatest role I might ever have in my life, and that's okay. If that is the greatest role I've ever had, then I thank God for that I got to do that. And I want to ask you a little bit about what has your life and your success taught you about being patient, and also about going after your dreams, because I was really taken by the idea of a 17-year-old version of you, not just liking Rent, but then going out and performing and auditioning for that show.
I think that, more than anything, I try to remind myself of this even today. More than anything, your intention matters. Your intention is so important, because you're gonna make mistakes. You'll say the wrong thing. You'll make a left when you should have made a right. But if your intention is not to harm anyone, if your intention is to truly make a difference, to connect with someone, you know what I'm saying? Everything else will fall in line behind your intentions. Your actions fall in line behind your intentions. People can see through your actions to what your actual intentions are. So that, I think, more than anything, has led me to where I'm sitting now. I mean, I'm also sort of, flabbergasted that a role like Burr, that a show like Hamilton landed in my lap. Rent was my Hamilton. That was my dream show. That was the show I knew all the words to. And I went to an audition thinking that it would take about 10 years to get it. I would get the show when I was like 30, and then I would do the show until I was 40, and then I would retire. That's just that's how I thought it worked. And so I was 16 when I went to the audition, and I got the show. you know? And so I'm in New York doing the show, but what it forced me to do then was to dream another dream because I'd already done that. You know, that was my dream show. And okay, so what now? So college, and if there was anything that somewhere in my spirit, you know, I'd always hoped was, well, I got to step in the center of that. I got to, you know, step in the center of my wildest dream and sort of live that out. But then I wonder what it would be like to have been there from the beginning. I wonder what it would be like to have, you know, seen the birth of that. Because when I got there, it was already open for about 2 or 3 years. So with Hamilton, you know, I can't believe it happened. You know, I can't believe that it actually happened. But if I can take credit for any of it, and I don't take credit for any of it, that was my intention. That's right. Thank you. It lined up with where I intended to be, and so after it, you know, I was talking backstage with my friend John, who's gonna play guitar for me in a little bit. We were talking about, you know, how, like, you know, now not being in the show, and you know, for everybody's gone. You know, all the original cast is gone from the show now. We had to leave at some point, you know, and there's new wonderful people doing those parts. But it does leave a sort of, you know, a hole in your life. It does. It's like this thing came in and sort of was a tornado and turned your life upside down in the most beautiful way. And then you're kind of like left, you know, now what? And so I don't know now what, but I can focus on my intention again, the kind of work that I want to do, why I want to do it. That's what I'm focused on again. Yeah, maybe I'll will myself into another room like that at some point.
Awesome. You said, so I want to ask you this question, but I guess I want to preface it with this idea that I wrote this story as an intern for the Washington Post. Not that you should read that paper more than us, of course, but but I wrote this story about this woman who had never waved an American flag until Barack Obama was elected president, and she said that she just felt like she was finally a part of the country. And when I was reading about you, you said publicly that doing Hamilton is the first time you've really felt part of the early American story. Why was that the case, and what did this role do for you that the history books couldn't?
Well, patriotism has always been tricky for people that look like me, you know, for obvious reasons. You know, patriotism is tricky. It's not impossible. We have servicemen and women who fought for this country since the first wars fought on American soil that look like me, and so it's possible. You know, you can find a reason to love America and to fight for America, but it's tricky to say the least. And so this was, you know, Lynn's proposition for us to step inside the shoes of these founding fathers, you know, and to sort of care about the things that they cared about and fight the way they fought and dream the way they dreamed. You know, that was just never something that I'd attempted to do before, to empathize with the founding father. You know, I said, I didn't know that an 80-year-old white man was like my dream role. But it was.
That's perfect. And I was listening to you in the audience sing all the Hamilton songs. And
surprisingly on pitch. You guys are good. You guys are really good.
So I want to ask you this. Why do you think Hamilton resonated so profoundly with obviously these students, but also around the country? And what do you think that the nation, especially in these times as we think of the Trump presidency, what do you think that this country could learn from the story of Hamilton?
Well, I think it resonated because it's a well-made thing. You know, I mean, Lynn, you know, spent 6 years, you know, pouring his heart and his soul and you know, everything he had into this thing. And so it's just a well-crafted piece of work. It's great music. You know, it's just so good. You know, the music, and then it was peopled by you know, the most talented artists you could find anywhere, you know, on stage, behind the scenes, and so it's just, it's just this. I think that that's why it's popular, because it's a beautiful piece of work. And I hope what people learn, the really wonderful thing about Hamilton is like it says all that it there's nothing else to say. There's like we didn't do a lot of curtain speeches and things like that when I was in the show, because I think we really were able to trust in that material. We were able to trust in that work. And I knew that if I gave that show everything that I had, that over that 3 hours, there was really nothing else that I had to say. If you could still walk away from those 3 hours and think that I am somehow inferior to you, or this woman next to me is somehow inferior to you because of whatever you may think, or that Lin-Manuel Miranda is somehow inferior to you because his, ancestors weren't, born here, possibly. You know what I mean? Then like, I don't know what else to say to a person like that. You know what I mean? I mean, there's really, it's a complete thought. Hamilton is a complete thought. And so I hope that it reminds people of what the intentions were when this experiment was started, when America began. I hope it reminds people of what that intention was, that it makes us look at where we are now, and that it helps us dream about where we can go, where we can be. That's all I hope that it does. I really hope that that show never becomes a partisan thing, where like you feel like if you believe one thing, you're not welcome at that show. I think that would be a tragedy for that show, because that show has a lot to say to people. We want that show speaking to the hearts and minds of people in this generation and in this country and around the world, really. We want that message out there. So I think I've said what I intended to say.
And with thinking about, I guess, the politics of the show, it made news when the artist who took over your role as Aaron Burr called out the vice president-elect Mike Pence in the audience. It made quite a powerful speech. What did you think about that moment, and how do you feel about that moment?
Well, what I'll say is I can't imagine what it was like. I was in London during that time. I was shooting a film in London. I was there for months during election season, after election, the election. And so I don't know what it was like to be doing Hamilton on November 8th. I don't know what that was like. I don't know what the feeling and the mood was in New York. I can imagine, what the feeling and the mood was in that community in New York. So it's hard for me to judge. But like I said, we had all types of people come through the show while I was there. People you might agree with, people you didn't agree with, all the time. And I always found that in those 3 hours, I didn't have anything more to say than that. When we get to the end, have you guys seen the show? Who in here has seen the show? A few people.
Some lucky kids.
all the years we traversed together, the land and the emotional landscape that we cover in that show. When Philippa steps forward and takes that breath at the end of the show, I'm like, I don't got nothing else to say to you. Like if you're still harboring sort of prejudice or like I said, feelings about people based on sexual orientation or race, or then you're hell bent, and we're gonna pray for you. But I really do think that show, that experience, when it's done right, in its highest, in its highest form, with the purest intention, when Hamilton is performed with the purest intention, it's like nothing I've ever seen in the theater. It's powerful. It changes people.
So I guess as a follow-up question, I mean, in that moment, I know you weren't here when the election was happening, but in that moment, could you imagine yourself giving such a speech if you were playing Hamilton at that moment? If Mike Pence or Donald Trump walked into the show, could you imagine yourself?
I can't. No, those would not have been my words. That would not have been the time that I chose to do it. But that, it's not for me to judge that man or that cast. That was the situation that they were in. I had this funny experience. I was in Iowa, performing at the University of Iowa and Iowa State, and one of them, I don't want to get in trouble, but one of them said when I got there, she said they got a bunch of calls and letters about, I can't believe you're having that guy that spoke to Mike Pence like that. I can't believe you're having him here to speak at our college. And I was like, here's the thing, that wasn't me. I'm not that guy. And really, that's all I have to say. Like, that wasn't me. And so you can get mad at me for the things that I did say. You can absolutely get mad at me for anything I've ever said. You can't get mad at me for the things I didn't say, though.
Gotcha. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about.
I guess, I don't want to dance around it. I just, like I said, it's not for me to say, what, like that. It was a different time. A lot of us felt like we woke up in a different world on November 9th. A lot of us did. And so what they felt was appropriate in that moment, I can understand why they felt it was.
When you say that you felt like you woke up in a different world, what did you feel like on November 9th? And what have you felt like in the days since as we've seen the Trump administration make policy and make decisions?
Well, the major thing that I felt on November 9th was, I think a lot of people, I read the paper. I read the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I looked at CNN, and I was and so, there something happened that we just weren't expecting, that was not forecasted to happen. It wasn't even like it was like sort of forecast, or there was an outside chance for some of us in the bubbles that we found out we were living. There was, a lot of us were going about our lives. Like I said, we read the news, we check the Facebook feed. We did. Some of us didn't understand the algorithm thing. That like, okay, so you're only showing me like a third of my friends. Like, why? Like, what about the rest? There are people that I discovered believed a certain way. It's like you're clicking around. Oh, this person's been posting like that the whole time, and I didn't. You just didn't show me. So that was the part, I think. At least for me and the people in my circle, that was the part that was sort of, it just took a couple days to recalibrate, to sort of go, just something happened that surprised us, that we felt sort of unprepared for. Mm-hmm. I wasn't taking anything for granted on the 8th, but I didn't see it playing out like that. Am I the only one? Did anybody else? Okay. Yeah, so it was just that. It was just, somebody, I think it was a Trump supporter that said, there was, but here's what I do want to say. There's two times in their life that they felt like, the computer broke, the pre-planned nature of life broke. September 11th and November the 8th. He was cheering for it. He was championing it. But here's the thing, the beauty of that is that now we all have that. We all had that experience, and so you'll never get us again. Not like that. Not like that. You know what I mean? We'll never take something like that for granted again, and we'll teach our children about that day. About we know what that looks like. We've never felt that before. It's like okay, and so as we're getting information on the next election day, we lived through something, on both sides. We lived through something that you can never take away from us again.
And my last question that I'll ask really quickly. Talk to me about President Barack Obama. You performed in front of him. What did his presidency mean to you? And subsequently, what does the presidency of Donald Trump mean to you?
I think, we're a couple weeks away from having our first kid, Nicolette and I, and thank you. I don't know. I guess it's what I'm on today. I'm on some intention right now, like because you know what people have jobs and bills and kids and people have lives, right? So I remember a time not too long ago when I wasn't thinking about what the president was doing every minute of every day. I remember when that didn't consume our lives, when like we could trust the intention of the person in the highest office in the land, when we could trust that, when we could go about our lives and know that we knew where he was coming from. And so I don't feel like I have that security at this moment. And so I look forward to the day when I feel that way again, whether it's in this presidency or the next presidency, when I can trust the intentions of the person standing behind the podium. Where are you coming from? Who are you? Who are your allies? Who's talking to you? Who is advising you? And what are their intentions? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, that's how that kind of security is something that maybe we have taken for granted as Americans. But yeah, that was the security that I had prior to November the 8th.
Okay. Thanks for answering my questions. Now there are going to be some questions from students, both those who are watching us and those in the audience. So I'm going to ask for the people here, if you want to ask a question, they should be lining up over there. With that young lady with the jacket on, you have to walk to her to line up to her. And I'm also going to have some questions from Facebook Live. Please all run. The first question, though, goes to Facebook Live, and this is from Yoko from who is asking from Northwestern University. Is there anything you wish you'd been told when you were in college? Basically, she's asking, is there any advice, any kind of things that you would have wanted to hear as a college student that you didn't, and that you can tell her and all these people?
It's such a different world. I can't believe I've been out of college for a minute. For a minute, and it's a really different world, that you guys are about to go into. You'll teach me, you'll tell me, someday what it's like. But I think that I just wish somebody would have told me, and maybe they did, but it's okay. It's all going to be okay. You're going to find your way. I think that. Yeah, and there are no prizes for waiting around, whatever your major is. A lot of times I talk to kids that are performing arts majors. Any performing arts majors in here today? Sweet, my people. But yeah, these days, you don't get any, there's no prize waiting for you. There's no sort of congratulations waiting for you for sitting and waiting for an opportunity to be created for you. People expect you to be busy. They expect you to be doing things for yourself, these days more than ever, because you have so much technology at your fingertips. You have just so much information at your fingertips that they expect you to come out and start a little company with your friends, or start. They expect you to sort of be self-generative. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I mean, I think when I was looking at you and researching and thinking about how you started and thinking about Rent a lot at 17, I thought about the fact that I became a journalist at 17 too, that I in my community, I just wanted to ask questions and started interviewing people. And that is, I think, what probably led both of us to be sitting here today. So I think when I talk to college students all the time, I think your hobby is likely what your passion is. What makes you cry is probably what's going to make your career. So to me, I think I always get emotional when I think about things, because if I cry about something, it's probably a front page story for the New York Times. And I think that that's probably the case with you. If you have an issue or you love to sing, I think that those are things that you shouldn't have to ignore. And I think you hopefully have parents that will love you through that, even if you defy their what they tell you to do. But all right, first question.
So, first off, hi, you're awesome, I love you. But my question is, obviously you played Aaron Burr, but you can answer this for any of the characters in Hamilton. What do you think some of the founding fathers that we see portrayed in the show, Hamilton, Burr, Jefferson, would have to say about not just politics, but the state of America as a whole now in 2017?
I think that they would be. I think that they would probably be appalled at. Let me finish. I think that they would probably be appalled at sometimes the grinding to a halt nature of it these days. The fact that because it's been since the very beginning. It's been somewhat transactional. I mean, you're sitting across from somebody, and you're trying to figure out what this person needs and wants, and what do I need and want, and where can we meet at the middle? In the middle, what can we agree on? How can we make this happen? And so, yeah, I think that they would be appalled if and that's like baseline. That's the minimum. We have to get things done, and so. Whenever it grinds to a halt, whenever it is about stalling forever, or making sure things don't get done, and punitive and ugly and nasty, I think just for the sake of those things, for the sake of politics, I think they'd be appalled by that. But what do I know? I don't know. Thanks for your question.
Leslie, hi dude. I'm I'm one of those performing arts majors you were talking about earlier.
I'm so sorry.
Man, it's all right. My question is a little bit specific and to performing arts people and to people following their passions at this time in American history. What advice would you give to young professionals who want to study art, who want to follow that passion right now? Like, what would be the first thing you would do if you were graduating from college with a theater degree?
Besides the thing that I said before, I think that it's just the most important thing to be creating from. You have to be making work about your time. You have to be creating from the inside of you. It's like I can curse. It's online, right? I can curse, right? No cursing?
I think we're cursing.
You have to set the bullshit aside. You have to. You know what I mean? You really do. I mean, you have to. It's just there's no time to play around. There's really no time to mess around these days. I mean, you have to be making work that is immediate, that is about your time, that is speaking to the people of your time. Because people come hungry. People come to the theater hungry. They come into the movie theater. They need to be fed. They want something that's going to inspire them. They want to hear something that's going to help them along their way. And so you provide that. That is serious work. It's joyful work too. It's joyful work. It's beautiful work. And so you just make sure that you're making timeless, important, passionate work about now. Because we need it so desperately. We need it so desperately. Yeah.
I'm gonna go to a question. I'm gonna go to a question from Facebook. This question, hold on, it's from Caitlin from Queens College. Would you say Hamilton has bridged the gap between the public, politicians, and the arts community alike? And if so, how?
Yeah, because I think a great question. I think that it spoke to our ideals. It spoke to the best of us. It spoke to the best of the left and the best of the right and everything in between and outside of that too. Again, it just reminded us of how this whole thing started, what it was about. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, a lot of times what one of the things that actually got me through the early stages of Hamilton, when I was very, very nervous and just trying to hold on to that job with everything that I had, I just didn't want it, you know, I didn't want it to be taken from me, because it, you know, they can be taken from you, you know this. And so, but I remember the day we had this big reading one day, and I remember there were going to be some big producers there and some people in the business that I really cared about. And I reminded myself, especially in the theater, but almost anywhere in the business, in any business, every single one of these kids started out as a pimply-faced theater nerd somewhere in America. Every single one of them was an unpopular, scrawny loser. You know what I mean? That just, you know, and even if they're my people. You know, but even if that wasn't true, there's somebody in there. You know, what you're trying to do is, what I wanted to do was reach that kid. What I want in this hardened, jaded, you know, angry agent person, producer person, I wanted to reach that kid that fell in love with this thing. Who is the kid what is that? He's in there. Who is she? Where is she? You know, before she became like, you know, tough as nails and like, I can't get her on the phone and she, you know, nothing moves her. You know, how can we scratch at that, get to that little girl, the person that started this whole thing? They say an artist spends their whole life trying to get back to the place where their heart was first opened up. You spend your whole life trying to touch that thing again. Touch that thing again. In whatever it is you're doing, you know, it's computer science, engineering. Like you want to reach down into the part of those people that fell in love with this thing at first. You want to remind them of that kid. Yeah, I'll shut up. Maybe.
And I'll just add, I mean, I think what I heard from you, and I think that's something that I think resonates with me both as a journalist, but also probably with my friends that are lawyers or other fields, is you fall in love with something and you go after and then you get it and you're like astounded. I'm like, you know, I'm still astounded that I'm like here and talking on the behalf of the New York Times. And I think to myself, when I'm tired and you hate it and you're like, oh my God, like I can't, like I haven't slept in forever. I think about that moment and think that you are doing exactly what you wanted to do. And I think that especially in college, at least for me, I think you're really at your best when it comes to knowing what you love, knowing what makes you happy. And if you can pursue that, and then if you can hold on to that, even when you're tired, even when you're in the office and you aren't particularly loving today, it will get you through so much. So I always tell people that, and I think that that's something that I just heard from you that I think is super important advice to young people and to college students, is to really remember that. Remember why you did this thing in the first place. And it'll carry you through a lot of tough times.
We should sing soon so you guys don't get bored. Maybe a few more questions, but then we should sing, right? Shouldn't we sing and then go? Let's a couple more questions.
There will be singing.
Okay.
There will be singing.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So excited to sing.
Hi, Leslie. I'm Jabril. It's incredibly nice to meet you. And my question has to do with the accessibility of Hamilton in regards to the intersection of like race and class. And so like I talk about Hamilton a lot with my friends, and we talk about how theater in general is kind of, seems like it's for like elites, particularly like rich white men, right? And so the really interesting thing about Hamilton though is that it's so centered around its soundtrack and its actual music, right? So like the majority of us in this room like have never seen it, right? But like we're so into it and we feel so connected to it. And that in conjunction with the fact that it's like a hip hop musical means that people who look like me and like are for the first time becoming interested in something that we didn't think was for us, right? And so it's ultimately like, and then understanding that the soundtrack is free, right? But then so you still have these like mostly like rich white men paying for this material, but it's enjoyable for everybody, right? And so it's really interesting like how Hamilton flips the narrative of who musicals are for or who theater is for, right? And so like you're talking about intention, but I wanted to know if that notion of flipping the purpose of theater was in your head, in your mind, like as someone who's a part of the cast, and kind of how that might relate to your own experience as like a black person, a black man, like in theater.
I love that. I love what you said. Beautiful. So that was my first real experience of like being in Star Wars or something, right? I mean, being in just a colossal commercial success in that way. And so I just don't, this is important for artists. There's the commercial theater, like don't get mad about that. Like they're doing a different thing. The commercial theater. Hamilton actually, is we all know that's the rare kind of thing. That actually is art. I mean, it started from a real beautiful place, and but it's still like that. Broadway is the commercial theater. They're trying to make as much money as they can, as fast as they can. So much of that stuff fails. Most of that stuff fails abysmally. They make no money ever. The same as us. They make, so it's a very risky thing. And the commercial, like Broadway, is not always about art. Like it's not. So I just want to share with you how I sort of got past that, because there were nights when I'm looking out in the audience and there's no brown faces. There's no brown faces in this audience, and I know some brown faces would be like digging this right now. I want to say too, like a side note, sometimes people would ask me, like they would think that the student audiences were my favorite audiences. They weren't. What my favorite audiences were? When we had old people here, some students up there, a little like white section over here, some Latin people over there, some black people around. Do you know what I mean? Like when it was a community experience, a communal experience, because the young people taught the old people how to watch it. The old people were laughing at things, musical theater references that the young people didn't get. And so there was just something in it for everybody. So there's that. Every now and again we would have those audiences, but here's how I got past it. I hope this isn't too hard. It's just the reality. I don't mean it to be harsh. The Broadway season, there's how many theaters are there? Somebody knows? There's not a lot of them. There's a finite amount of Broadway theaters, and every season they have to, it's like fashion, right? Every season they have to they have to clean out the ones that aren't working, and they have to present a new line. They have to present a new line of clothing for you to wear, and that is their cachet. That's the money is in its newness. What they charge you for is the fact that it's new. Because here's what I want to say: it's not that everybody can't see Hamilton; it's that everybody can't see Hamilton today. It's not that everybody can't wear Versace. It's just that I might be able to afford it in 4 years when it's at the outlet. That's no shade. I mean, that's just what that is. The only thing that you're paying for with clothes, it's the same raggedy clothes that you buy anywhere. What you're paying for is the label and the fact that if you want to wear it today, we're going to charge you for that. Do you know what I mean? So it's just understanding the reality of that, and then making time and space in my life to do stuff like this. I ain't getting paid a dime to do this. It's making time and space in your life that you feel like you can give back and you can talk to the next generation, because in all of our lives, if you want to pursue that commercial kind of success, and not all of you want to, that's cool. Not all of you will do it, but you got, coming to terms with that reality is part of it. Great question.
Hi, my name is Paulina. My roommate Natalie and I, we really love you. We just wanted to say, so my question was, how were you able to walk away from Hamilton? Like, it was obviously a huge success, and like you said, like you loved it, obviously. So, what made you think like it was enough? Like, what made you think like, all right, I'm cool with finishing now?
Yeah, it's a great question. Many things. You know, it's like that early experience, that AIDA experience, you know, helped me in my life a lot. I hope that you guys, I hope that for you, I hope that you learn how to walk away easily, that you learn how to put things down when it's, you know, to know when the moment is right to put the pencil down, or to, you know, to pack up your things and like, farewell. You know what I mean? Like it's a personal thing. It's different for everybody. I knew I've had a lot of practice. I've had a lot of practice of knowing at this time when it's time to say no, when it's time to walk away from something with, you know, with no ill will, with no, you know, hard feelings. It just was time. I had been so much of the work that kept me up at night about Hamilton, so much of that was already behind me. You know, when it's just words on the page, which that's what I got. I just got like words and melodies on the page. Oh my God, this could be anything. How are we gonna move? What is it gonna look like? You know, I was coming and trying new stuff and, you know, inventing it. You know, we made it up. It didn't exist, you know? And so like once that's done, the job becomes different. You know, then it becomes about being a custodian of it. It becomes about being a good steward of it. You know, you have to protect it and preserve it in a way. And like, I did that part of it too. You know, I did that. So, but, you know, coming to the end of like, I don't know, like a 2.5, 3 year journey with that show, it was just time. It's not like I'm jumping up and down leaving. Like, it didn't feel all that great. But there's also, the last thing I'll say is, it's like if we could freeze it, if we could bottle it up and freeze it, and we would, but that's not the nature of live theater. Live theater is ephemeral. It leaves, it changes. And so once Philippa leaves, once Lynn leaves, once David, it's a different thing. It's a different thing. So we have to let it go. It was just time to let it go. Thank you. Good question.
We have about 4 minutes worth of questions left before you start singing, just in case you wanted to know.
Okay, I can't wait to sing. So excited to sing.
Jake from Boston University has a question. He says, "Do you see our current political climate affecting the messages in your work?"
Absolutely. I'm trying to be an artist with like roots in the earth. I want to have a knowledge of where I've come from. You know, I want to, you know, be filled up with history, living in the present. You know, so I want to. Yes, whenever I step up to a microphone, I don't always succeed. We'll see how this goes today. I don't always succeed, but I desperately want to be an artist who speaks to who fulfills the need. I'll say this: there was a time in my life when I really had to, you know, I really needed to grow. I had to shed some things, and I had to grow because I was so tired of other people's work inspiring me, but not my own. And that happens. I was watching other people do beautiful work and like, oh man, that's so gorgeous. And, you know, I mean, that person made me cry. That person made me laugh. That person made me feel something. And my work didn't do that. My work was safe. It was bland. It was boring. I was able to pay my bills sometimes, but it was boring. And so I had to let safe go and try. I had to risk. I had to try some new stuff. And so I'm always trying to speak to the time that I'm living in. Always.
Okay.
So first, besides Hamilton, I Love You and Smash. So my question is, what first came to mind when you found out that you won the Tony, and where do you keep it?
It is in my house. And what first came to my mind is like, thank all of the people. Just thank all of the people. Because you can't take it for granted that you're ever going to be back. You know, you might never be back. That might be your only time in your life that you were at that microphone. And so thank all of the people. I wanted to thank my cast who, you know, I don't want to do the speech again right now, but, you know, it meant so much to me. But thank all the people. That's all that was going through my mind. Don't forget, don't forget.
I actually have to ask the last question because you're getting ready to sing. Sorry.
Straight out of UCLA.
I know.
He is so sorry. What's your name? Andre is so sorry for missing work. Where do you work? Yes, he's so sorry.
I'm a UCLA campus tour guide.
They'll be fine. They can. I'll do it for you. Sculpture garden. What? The library. Yeah. Basketball team. I get it. Russell. What? Oh. James Franco. James Franco teaches a class. Office hours. We'll talk about that. That's right. I know the whole tour. Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
love this.
Last question.
Okay, so you're about to perform what I think is a beautiful song, and it's called Seriously, and you made it in collaboration with This American Life in the run-up to the election. Tell us the story behind the music we're about to hear.
Sarah Bareilles called me and said, would I sing an original Sarah Bareilles song? And I said, no. No. I said, absolutely. And she said, well, let me tell you what it is. And I said, okay, I'm outside your door, but tell me. She said that NPR, I think it was NPR. It was This American Life, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were doing, the run-up to the election, they were doing different perspectives, different episodes. Every episode had a song that was written from like a different, you know, perspective in the election. So I think there was a Hillary song, there was a Trump song, there were a couple songs, and so I got to sing Sarah's. And yeah, I just
And it's from the perspective of Barack Obama.
Of Barack,
President.
yeah.
Okay.
And I just again, yeah, it was that same thing. It's like, you know, when you hopefully what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And that's all I tried to do. I was just like, let's make an honest offering. Let's check our intention. Are we trying to be mean? Are we trying to be snarky? Are we trying to be, you know, provocative? Or are we just trying to, you know, offer something, you know, from our hearts, and hopefully it reached some of yours. We're gonna see about it again today.
Awesome. So please go
Thank
up
you.
and take it.
Ready? Yeah. Is that mine, Gary? Yeah. Let's switch. This is John Sosin. Hey. Is he allowed to plug in his guitar? Okay. Sarah is starring in a show on Broadway right now. Do you guys know that? You're Sarah. Your Sarah is in Waitress on Broadway right now. She wrote that. You did Waitress? Whoa. We're gonna have a jam session after this. They'll turn the cameras off, but it's... Let's start with hope. I threw it in the middle like a skipping stone. The ripples one, son of a gun. Some would not have thought so, but I stand here, Commander-in-Chief. And I take it seriously. But along the way, a rogue ripple turned tidal wave. In reaction to what I tried to do, rebirth of our nation's hatred, red, white,
and blue is black in there too. Seriously, one man rewriting the book on bad behavior. Maybe he cheats the neighbors, thinks he gets what they pay for weekend. Pat him on the back and send him on through. No man's ignorance will ever be his virtue. Is this the best we can be? Seriously? Let's talk of fear. No, I don't bring it in here. It's a dangerous word, spooks the herd, and we all bleed in the stampede. Fear makes a false friend indeed, and I take it seriously. So hear me now, for the truth gets drowned out by a demagogue flexing, a demagogue. He's history repeating. Angry, am I angry? You ask, am I angry? And I'm at a loss for words. After all we've done, every battle hard won, every hair gone gray, in the name of this place, in a history plagued with incredible mistakes, still I pledge my allegiance to these united, divided states. Seriously, let's end with why. It's a question I wanna ask of us as a populace. Why not take our time, all the weight of this story? Seriously.
Thank you, guys.